Thank you. In our planning of this event, we wanted to first take a step away from the K-12 computer science classroom and examining how entrepreneurs and community organizations are applying CT skills to do their work, including but not limited to teaching CT. So we asked ourselves, how do we teach computational thinking to students who likely don't have computers? And we found that answer all the way in New York, where they're teaching CT without the computers. There are a large number of questions that we can pose with respect to equity and underserved communities. First is, what are the curricular needs that are unique to underserved communities? And the second, what are the potential outcomes that we should be mindful of? And how and why are these disparate from the large field of computer science, technology, and the Silicon Valley? With that, I would like to provide a working definition for us in regards to equity. Equity is the distribution of resources, skills, and knowledge as needed that will lead to the same outcomes. It is not the equal distribution of resources, etc., to groups regardless of need. In the field, we understand computational thinking to be some iteration of a problem-solving methodology where we identify problems and use a computer or an algorithmic tool to solve those problems. In the development of that methodology, we use pattern recognition, automation, and analysis, among other skills, to create something that has vast possibilities beyond the STEM classroom to humanities and elsewhere. Computational thinking has been limited to curricular integration in STEM, but it's important that we look beyond this and consider who is exposed to CT and why. If we do so, we would be better situated to refine the scope of our work and target specific imperatives that lead to better outcomes. In that, I'm talking specifically about underserved students, including students of color, female students, low income, immigrant, and first generation students, without prioritizing one marginalized group identity over another. While we as a collective of researchers, educators, and entrepreneurs have done the work around identifying who falls under the umbrella of underserved, there remains work to be done around defining what it means to be equitable in that context. I say this because education in this country is already inequitable, but when we begin talking about curriculum that potentially requires additional equipment and training of teachers beyond the traditional credentialing program, we may exacerbate the issue even if unintentionally. We therefore need to understand the history of education in the United States and the resulting institutional structures and cultural norms that have brought us to our current status of having large populations of underserved students. This country began by intentionally not educating a majority of the population, then moving to legal segregation. Remedies to integrate schools, laws around property taxes, and school budgets have left many school districts in worse shape as the access gap continues to grow. For me, it feels like in order to introduce CT to underserved communities, we also have to address the inequities that exist in those communities. This doesn't mean changing laws around property taxes and school budgets, for example. Rather, it means finding ways to implement a curriculum so that it can be used effectively, or in addressing the following question: how are we able to scale and integrate computational thinking skills and curricula to and for students who need it most?